Good morning, everybody. I hope you're doing all right, that you're all happy and awake, ready to go for another day on developing the fearless heart. And this will be the last day of the the 6-day course. And I know that many of you have also booked for tomorrow. So tomorrow is going to be a special edition of how to develop the fearless heart, So today what I would like to cover is how we do that, from developing the compassion for ourselves, then reaching out to all sentient beings. So we're going to talk about the two different methods that we can find in scripture and how we can combine these methods when we meditate. So that's a little bit what I try to do, and the lights are going off here. Let's see how long the internet is going to last. They're obviously working somewhere on the electricity, so things are coming and going. Impermanence, right? We remember impermanence when these things happen. So let's start this session with setting up a good motivation. And before we do that, we just make sure that the mind is relaxed and focused. And I'm really sorry, I have so much blinking in my glasses. I'll try to take them off as much as I can, but can't see much without them. So let's set up a good motivation. And in order to do that, we first need to let calm down the disturbing emotions. When we are busy and when we have a lot to think about, the mind gets disturbed. And when the mind is disturbed, it is very coarse. When the mind is more coarse, it is more difficult to hear the Dharma. So if you just sit still and you focus your mind on your body, the mind will naturally calm down. And maybe parts of your body still try to run to the future, So when that happens, you gently call that part back. And when there are many thoughts caught up in the past, you do the same. You call them back and say, the next 2 hours, there is no need to think about all that. I will come back to that after this session. But for now, I just want to use my energy to listen, to reflect, to connect. And then you can reflect on the sufferings of your life. And on where you wish to be free from that suffering. You wish to have a peaceful, happy life. And now at this moment in time, you have found a method that can help you to create that, to generate that. And we rejoice in that. And you can make a determination that whatever you have learned so far, that you're going to implement that wherever you can, in order to make yourself more happy, in order to stop creating the causes for suffering. But you also realize that you are not alone in this. That just as you want to be free from suffering, and just as you want to have a peaceful life, all sentient beings are longing for the same thing. And most of them are much worse off than you. Their situation is so difficult. And they don't have a method like you. So then in dependence on that, you can think, whatever I learn, I'm going to use that to develop my own potential for wisdom and compassion, so that I have a peaceful and happy life. But I'm not going to do that just for my own sake. I'm going to do that so that I can also help each and every sentient being to attain that same state. And you might not know yet how to do that, but you can still make the aspiration. And then let that motivation merge with your mind. How are you all doing? This is a lot to digest. You know what we're doing? I find it quite a lot. 4 hours a day, but maybe you enjoy, maybe you love such a high dosage. The fact that you are still all here, I think that shows that you are willing to give it that many hours. Yes, it's a lot, but it's good. It's a lot. Yes, sometimes it's very good to get a higher dosage, and then you can live on that for quite a while. I know that sometimes you go to courses, you do 10 days of teaching. And I know that when I started, this one course would keep me going for a month, and then at a certain point you feel like, I need something again, and you go to another course. And so Somya says, I still feel I need to do more reading to understand the teachings better. But when your teaching is so valuable, it motivates me. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to give you the essence of the teachings. And in order to get to that essence, I don't know. I studied it very extensively. So then I give you the main points. And I have a lot of knowledge around these points, but I can understand that when you just hear the main points, you know that you do not have that extra knowledge. So yes, then reading, listening is going to be helpful to fill in the gaps. But if you follow the outlining of the course, this is what always comes back in the teachings. So that can be like a guide. And then on each topic, you can study so much to get more knowledge on that. Warren especially likes the teachings at night in order to let him sink in. Todd is jumping in with both feet. Yes, and having a little bit longer teachings, it allows you to go deeper and not to stay on the surface. That's what Amelia says. Katrina is enjoying, but it is intense. And what it brings up is vast, so sometimes so much gets stirred up and then we need weeks, months to digest that. But I think that's a great value. You want that to get out of your system. Koshi says, some old unpleasant memories come back, disturbing the tranquility of my mind, even after practicing meditation for about 10 years. How to get rid of it? So when you have unpleasant memories coming up, I think you still have not digested these memories. And so you have to go back to them and see if there is something valuable in there that you haven't seen yet. Maybe there are some needs in yourself that you have not yet discovered that need attention. Sometimes we use spiritual practice in order to forget about all that negativity that has happened in our life, and we try to somehow stay above it. We just don't go back. And when we practice enough, you somehow subdue all these memories and these emotions connected to the memories. And so then it appears like you're doing actually quite well in daily life. Everything is going very smooth. But underneath, there is still a lot of mud that needs to be cleaned out. So then when you listen to the teachings, it stirs up. And so look at it. What is that? What is that? And I think the better you look at it, the more possibilities for growth you have. Yes, it is unpleasant. Yes, it's not what we're on a superficial level, but once you work through it, really work through it, you can work through it in a way that it is gone forever. And instead of having these memories that disturb your mind, you have this vast knowledge that no matter what, your mind is not going to be disturbed. That's where you want to get. All right? So now your tranquility of mind depends upon causes and conditions. But when you really when you work even more through it and totally remove the disturbing emotions that are connected to these memories from your mind stream, they never come back. You're free forever. And then the tranquility that you have doesn't take so much effort. You don't have to meditate so much. You don't have to, your mind is quiet. Yes, Emilio. Emilio says something similar that I just mentioned. Yes, Ostatius likes it. He likes to have more. So when we go into these teachings, they can bring up, we feel that life is more intense. Huh? Emilio says, I was saying to a friend that it feels like living a couple of lifetimes in a week. Sure, still to digest more. And I think also when you bring the mind to the present moment and when you're really focused, it looks like time is much longer. You know, you have so much more time in the day. That shows that there are less disturbing emotions in the mind, that you are really focused on the present moment. So Sri Ram is enjoying. That's really nice. So the chat, I think, is working well. Maybe tomorrow we can also do a little bit of talking. Maybe we talk about that in the morning, if that is what people want or not. So tomorrow I didn't have the intention. Somebody asked, can we talk about our needs and how to meet our needs? Maybe I'll mention something today. You guys are giving me so much messages now. I asked for it, isn't it? It's I did it. Okay, I'm going to read the rest while you're doing the journaling somewhere in the session. And I love to hear from you, you know, so don't hesitate, even if I cannot read all your messages. For me, it's very helpful in what I teach, you know, it's where to put emphasis. So a little recap from the last few days. We have been talking, we have been speaking about the foundation that we need to develop in order to develop fearless compassion, which is that we need to understand the preciousness of this human rebirth. And we also need to develop the knowledge that this is not going to last forever. And that knowledge is best if it is not just intellectual knowledge, but that you also have a feeling for that. The more you have a feeling for that, the more you can distinguish what is really valuable in life and what is meaningless. And that will help you to focus on the things that are meaningful to you. And so we also spoke about, after that, we spoke about how to develop what self-compassion is and how to develop that. And we base that on not just this life, you know, when negative feelings come up, to be with the negative feelings, which is very important to learn. But you also need to see it in the big picture of Buddhism, that we are the ones who are creating the causes for suffering. So when negative experiences come to us, negative events happen in our life, we have been the creators of that. Then we are also the creators of how we react to that. And that one is, I think, a very, very important one. You know, we cannot stop karma from ripening. So when things happen, they happen. But then if we get really upset and we cannot stop being upset what is happening to us, we create so much causes for more suffering. And even being upset is a suffering experience. You know, so if we get more control over that reactive mind, the thinking mind, the emotion, it is an emotional mind, it is driven by emotions, but it is creating all these stories in our mind. If we get more control over that one, we can have much more control over feeling happy no matter what. So self-compassion is not a term that we find back in the Buddhist text. But if we talk about stopping creating the causes for suffering and addressing the delusions in order to be liberated from all levels of suffering, then Buddhism, in Buddhist texts, you can find that back as renunciation. And I think they might not talk about self-compassion because in order to really renounce, we need to realize the emptiness of the self-grasping mind. And self-compassion almost feels contradictory to that. So they talk about renunciation, but in terms of practice, it is the same. And so we also spoke about the key ingredients of our practice, such as mindfulness, the 4 immeasurable thoughts, and setting an intention and dedicating at the end. And so yesterday, after finishing the self-compassion, we spoke about the prerequisite for developing compassion for all sentient beings, which is equanimity. So normally, due to the self-grasping mind, which is the cause that we see the self, right? When a baby is very upset, due to the screaming, it starts to discover itself. And in dependence on that self, we see other. And so due to the self-grasping mind, we see differences between things. We see differences between people. Especially when we talk about things that cause feelings to arise in our mind. So in the dependence on which feelings arise, when we meet people, we generate the idea of, I like you, you're my friend. I don't like you, you're my enemy. Or I can't care less about you, you are a stranger. Right? Normally we don't think it like that, but I'll just give you the picture. How our mind works. It's dependent upon the self-grasping mind. We see the differences. So seeing that is based on our emotion. The only reason why we see it like that is our feeling. And then on dependence on the feeling, we look for reasons. You know, oh, I don't like that person because that person is doing this and this and this, as if what we don't like is out there. But the only reason why we don't like that is because we don't feel happy when we observe that. That's the only reason. So what we do with our rational mind, we try to justify the feelings that we have. That's how we use our intellect. You know, often when something happens and we have thoughts about a person, oh, that's a really ugly person because of this and this, we go and look for friends. Do you see that too? This person is like this and this. And then when we are with 2 or 3 friends who see the same thing, we believe it's true what we are seeing. Right? And then we hold on to that. That person is like that. But we don't think, why is this causing me feeling like this? And how do I react to my feelings? So to develop equanimity, we have to stop looking at the differences between people, but look at the similarities. If you can see that you are the same as everybody else, and that everybody else has the same needs, is after the same thing, is trying to do the same thing, you get a feeling of connection. And when that feeling of connection is there, it's much easier to open up the heart. When we see the differences, we easily put up the walls. Right? That's just how the mind works. So look for similarities. You know, when we are living in a time that somehow we are pointed out, the differences between us are pointed out. And it is almost like the gap between two different groups is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And so then doing the social distancing on top of that, and doing the masks on top of that, and not going to work on top of that, and not being able to meet on top of that, it takes us away from each other. And we are building walls. And when we're building walls, it's so difficult to feel compassion. And it's so much easier to judge and to think something to keep other people away. And it is almost like we are set up to do that, you know? And so we have to, I think we have to refuse that, because that's not really who we are. Human beings need connection. Human beings need love to thrive. They need to feel love. They need to feel that there are people around them that care for them in order to thrive. If we lock ourselves up in a little room where we are all by ourselves, or with a very little bubble, you know, we become lonely, we become self-centered, the delusions, they flourish, they get triggered all the time. We get angry, we get agitated, we become discontent, we're going to feel miserable. And we need to recognize that that is what is happening, you know. And so compassion is not something that is going to arise out of nowhere just because I feel good. I have compassion in my mind. Compassion is a practice. Compassion is something that we need to make effort in order for it to arise in the mind. We need to direct our thoughts in a certain way for compassion to arise in the mind. It's not coming from nowhere. Compassion, especially compassion for all sentient beings, compassion for those that we don't know, compassion for those that we don't like, comes from causes and conditions. And so for it to arise, we need to create the causes and conditions. We need to direct our thinking in a certain way. Very important, especially in this time, to remember our human nature. Our human nature is to be connected. And we have access to these teachings, so we have a kind of responsibility to bring this in the world as much as we can, you know, so that human beings do not forget. As I mentioned yesterday, the mind gets used to anything. You know, if somebody tells me, well, you have cancer, you're only going to live another 2 months. Yeah? The first days, my mind goes mad. And then after a couple of days, weeks, the mind gets used to it. And I start to think, I'm going to die, you know. And then when I start getting used to it, I start to prepare for my death. It doesn't mean that I like it, but the mind gets used to the thought. So I think we should never get used to the thought that human beings are not social animals. I think we should never get used to the thought to just learn to live with disconnection. And I think we have to put effort in that, because otherwise the minds will slip in that direction. All right, enough about my concerns. So how do we focus on the similarity? We can train our mind to put ourselves into the other person's shoes. You know, how would I feel when that happens to me? And I'm not just on the intellectual level, try to feel it. Try to really imagine you are that other person, and whatever is happening to that other person is happening to you. How would you feel? That's a very good training to developing empathy. And then we can also think about the fact that the relationships that we have at the moment, our friends, our enemies and strangers of the moment, that these relationships are not stable. They change. You know, when causes and conditions change, our best friend can become our enemy. And we, of course, we hope that that is not going to happen. And of course, we can keep up nourishing our good relationships. But at the same time, they are never reliable. You know, how many women or husbands haven't come home one day and discovered that their partner was in a relationship with somebody else? And not for one day, but maybe 1 week or 1 year or 5 years, right? And I'm not want to generate any suspicious in your mind, but you have to somehow see that it is not reliable. You know, we spend a lot of our energy for pleasing others in order for the other person to keep liking us so that we can stay in that relationship. And you can also wonder, what else could I have done with that time that is going to help me not just in this life, but that's going to help me as a human being to grow. That sounds a bit like cutting through the emotional needs of having a partner. I'm really sorry if I did that. It takes time to get used to that, you know. So thinking about the instability of our current relationships and training the mind in seeing the similarities that we have with others. That is creating the foundation, independence upon which we can create or we can generate the compassion that is there for all sentient beings. So in Buddhism, we have 2 lineages that instruct us on how to develop bodhicitta, or how to develop the mind that wishes to work for all sentient beings. And that mind is coming from great compassion, wishing all sentient beings to be free from suffering. So the first one, which I'm going to try to do today, is what is called the 7-point cause and effect instruction. And that is, I'm not going to tell you where it's coming from. Doesn't really matter. It is taught within the Lam Rim texts. Again, if you go to any of the Lam Rim texts, you can find the 7-point cause and effect instruction. And I had made a little sheet to make it a little bit easier for you to see that. Just let me open that. And share it with you. Here we go. Share the screen. Oh, here it is. So it is called the 7-point cause and effect instruction. And so there are 6 points which are causes of each other, and the final result, the final effect is the 7th is bodhicitta. So the 6 causes are recognizing all sentient beings as your mother, and I will explain you why it is like that. And then in dependence upon that, you recognize their kindness, and then you generate a wish to repay their kindness. And from that, affectionate love arises in the mind. The wish for these, what we say, kind mother sentient beings to be happy. And then if you wish sentient beings to be happy, automatically you want them to be free from suffering. So that's the great compassion. And then dependence on that, you say, I'm not only going to wish them to be free of suffering, but I actually going to take care of that. I'm going to make sure that they're going to be free of suffering. And that's the extraordinary intention. And then from that comes bodhicitta that we say, well, in my current state, I'm not really capable of doing anything. You know, I have very small capacity. But how would I be able to help each and every sentient being to become free from suffering? I can only do that when I develop my full potential for wisdom and compassion, which means when I become a Buddha, when I become fully awake, when I remove all the obscurations from my mind stream, only then, and develop all the qualities, only then can I be of help. So therefore, I use my human life in order to start developing that potential of wisdom and compassion. So in order to get to that bodhicitta wish, we have to first get to the extraordinary intention, which comes from great compassion, which comes from affectionate love, which comes from having recognized all sentient beings as your mother, recognizing their kindness and generating the wish to repay their kindness. And so now I'll go through that step by step. I put this in the Google Drive folder so you can find it back there. Okay? So recognizing all sentient beings as one's mother. So whether you had a good mother or not, doesn't matter at this point. I will talk about that in the next point. But you will have to acknowledge that in order to be born in this life, you had a mother who gave birth to you. True? Whether you hate her or love her, whether you had a good relationship with her or not a good relationship with her, you came out of her womb. You grow as a baby in her womb. Right? So she was your mother. You had a mother. You have a mother in this life. So how have all sentient beings been our mother? We can think about that in terms of what it says in scripture. You know, in Buddhism we say we can find it in scripture. That is a reason why we take it as a truth or as a valid reason. But we can also say it is based on reasoning. And then we can use our own mind to follow that reasoning and see if we can follow that and agree with that and adopt that, or, you know, or maybe develop that into our own mind. So what is the reason that all sentient beings have been our mother? So first of all, you have to establish that the mind, the continuity of mind, has no beginning. And I mentioned that somewhere, I think the second day, that the substantial cause for the mind is the previous moment of mind. And the cause for that is the previous moment of mind. And so you can go back in the mind, but you cannot, because you cannot posit a first moment of mind. Because if you would posit a first moment of mind, you would have to say, where is that coming from? How is that created? And you would have to say the previous moment of mind. You know, so therefore we say the continuity of mind is beginningless. And so if we had if our mind has existed since beginningless time, we have taken rebirth countless times. And in all these rebirths, not just in this life, we needed a mother. So if we had 100 rebirths until now, we have had 100 mothers. Right? Or if we had 1,000 rebirths, we have had 1,000 mothers. But according to Buddhism, we have had countless rebirths until now. And so therefore we have had countless mothers. And so then they say, and I have to read this because it always is dazzling to me. So although sentient beings are also countless, the number of sentient beings that exist is fewer than the number of mothers you have had. This is a mind-boggling thing. Okay, let me give you the essence. So because you have had countless rebirths, you had countless mothers. And then they say, but it is not that each mother, each sentient being has been your mother only once. And then they come with a lot of numbers, you know, but they say every sentient being has been your mother countless times. And so then you can say you can't prove that. You know, maybe there is a sentient being out there that has not been my mother. And then I would say, well, can you prove that? That sentient being has not been your mother? You're not sure about that either, no? So we can never say that one has not been my mother. We do not know, right? We cannot see our rebirth. But if you think about in terms of numbers and in terms of thinking about the beginningless mind and how many times we must have taken rebirth, then the chance that each and every sentient being has been our mother is definitely there. The chance that someone who's standing in front of me has been your mother is definitely there. That could have been like that. So that means that your friends have been your mothers countless times. That means that your enemies have been your mother countless times. And so in order to get a realization of this, you know, we have to think again and again and again and again and again. First of all, we have to establish, I think, for ourselves, especially for people in the West who are not used to thinking about past and future lives, we have to establish that the mind doesn't have a beginning. And so for that, you meditate on the continuity of the mind. And you go back in time, you know, back to the time of birth, and then back to the time that you were in the womb, and back to the time of conception, and then back to the time before that. And then you can also do it in the reverse order into the future. What will happen at the end of my life, you know? What will happen at the moment of death, and what will happen at the next moment. And so with that, you can get some idea in that you connect with that continuity, and then it becomes almost, you know, it can become natural to feel that, yes, that continuity is there. And I have been here before, and I do have the feeling that I'm not going to be extinct the moment that I die, that actually my mind continues somehow. And so then I take rebirth again, then I do need a sentient being who gives birth to me. Right? And whether I'm born as an animal or a human being or another type of being, I still need a mother. And so then we remember the kindness of the mother. That's the second point. And so I know that not everyone had a pleasant relationship with the mother. And then this can become a really difficult point to meditate upon, because every time the disturbing emotions come up, you know, your hurt, your sadness, your pain, maybe your anger, and how can you think about your mother as being kind? So what teachers, there are different ways that teachers give us a help in how we can do this. So some teachers say if you really had a very difficult relationship with your mother, if there was an abusive relationship, you know, then you should not use your mother to meditate on the kindness of mother sentient beings. But you should use someone who has been very kind to you in this life, someone that you feel that you trusted, somebody that took care of you, somebody that could see you, somebody that you felt you have a loving connection with. Such a person you take to your mind, you know, and it can be part of your family, or it can be maybe your teacher or somebody else, an auntie, your grandmother, whoever has that role in your life. When you think about mother sentient beings, you think about that relationship and that being, right? And then you think, just as my grandmother has been kind to me in this life, you know, I had many grandmothers also in past lives, and they also have been kind to me. So you think in that way. You can also think, you know, once I was asked to a Lama, so if, which mother is more important? You know, some people, they are given away after birth. So somebody asked the Lama, which mother, when I meditate on the kindness of the mother, which mother do I take in mind? The mother that gave birth to me, or the mother who took care of me after birth? And that Lama say, you have to think about the mother who gave birth to you. So we can all say that kindness has been given to us by our mother, right? No matter what our mother has done after birth, she has given us birth. She has given birth to us. She has given us our life. He said that's the kindness of the mother. They have given us our life. Without our mother, we would not have this body. We would be somebody else. Because of my mother, I am who I am. So then another way that you can do it is that before you start meditating on that, you really, and you have issues with your mother, that you work through the self-compassion and you do a lot of healing there first. And then once you have healed that relationship, if you can, you know, if you have digested your negative feelings that arose in relationship to your mother, then you can think about the kindness of your mother. You know, often once you have processed whatever happened that you didn't like, often after that, you can see the positive aspects of that relationship. And so then another way that you can do is that, but that's a little bit more tough, you know, and you need a little bit more training in your mind in order to do that. But you could even see the negative aspects as something helpful. Because upon hurt and dependence upon our wounds, you know, also we develop loving kindness and compassion, and we develop a lot of wisdom, a lot of insight into the nature of reality, insight into relationships, insight into our own needs, into the workings of our own mind. So you could say, in dependence upon that, I actually developed a lot of patience, a lot of wisdom, a lot of compassion. And without these tough experiences, I would never have been able to do it. You know, if you are born in a place where everything goes well, these qualities are much harder to develop. You might not even be interested in even thinking about it. So these are different ways that you can work with this issue, and you have to see what works best for you. And then, of course, there are also many people who had lovely mothers, who had wonderful mothers, who had, you know, there are women who have such big hearts, and they have so, you know, I think to be a really good mother, you need to have taken care of your own needs. You need to take care of your own needs. Don't give that to your children. You take care of your own needs, and then you take care of the needs of your child. And so then with the kindness of the mother, we can think about, you know, everything that a mother is doing, from the moment that she was carrying us in her womb, all the hardships that she went through in being pregnant. Some women suffer greatly of being pregnant. Some women, they from month 3, they need to lay on their back in order to be able to give birth to a healthy child. Women need to take care of what they eat, of what they drink. They have a lot of physical discomfort from carrying the baby. And in general, mothers are very happy when they're pregnant, right? Not everyone, but we want to think about the mother who is really happy that she is pregnant, giving birth. The birth process itself is extremely painful. And so the mothers, once they have given birth, they say they already forgot about the pain. You know, they are very happy to suffer in that way themselves in order to give birth. So that is kindness. And so then you can think about all these moments in life, you know, when you were a very little baby, how she fed you and how she kept you clean and how she attended to you when you were crying. And then when you were growing older, how she was playing with you and then brought you to school and put up with you the way you were. And so you go through your whole life remembering how your mother sacrificed her own happiness to make you happy. Because that's what the mother does, isn't it? When you are sick, the mother says, give me your sickness. I prefer to be sick than seeing you being sick. Mothers want to take your suffering away. Mothers sacrifice their own happiness to give it to you. So you think about someone who has given that to you. And then you go over that again and again, you know, and put yourself in her shoes, what she did for you. And then you think that in all these lifetimes you had mothers like that. And so all sentient beings have been our mothers and have in that role been extremely kind to us, just as the mother of this lifetime is incredibly kind to us. And then we think about repaying their kindness. I am in such fortunate circumstances. I have met the teachings. I have met with a teacher. I have met a path that shows me the way out of suffering. And I have the right circumstances for practice. So how selfish would it be if I only use that for my own benefit? And so with that in mind, you think about repaying the kindness. In order to develop the wish for sentient beings to be free from suffering, we need to have some reasons, right? It's not that we just going to do that. So if you can see each and every sentient being as having been your mother and remembering their kindness, you know, there might come a feeling that I do want to give to others. All right. I'm going to give you a little bit of time for journaling because I know that some people really like it. And so I made some questions. And I also made some questions from yesterday. So if you want to, if you go to the folder on Drive, on Google Drive, you can find some questions for day 5, and then you can do that on your own. Here they are. So the questions are, how can you recall the kindness of your parents and especially your mother? And the second is, what have you received that you feel grateful for? And so if you had a very difficult relationship, try to think what eventually you have learned in dependence on that, which has made you more rich, which has made you more mature, which has brought qualities to you. Okay, is everyone okay with that? I'll give you 10 minutes. Okay, and then finish your writing. And then we continue with going through the 7 points. So when we talk about repaying the kindness, it's like you want, you know, mother wants to make you happy, so you want to make your mother sentient beings happy. How do you do that? By giving them not only the temporary happiness of this life, but also to give them the ultimate happiness of liberation and of enlightenment. If we would give them just the happiness of this life, you know, Lama Zopa Rinpoche once said, we have done that countless times. And the nature of samsara is that no matter what we give, they're never going to be satisfied because what we give cannot satisfy them. So yes, you can use gifts in order to have a good connection with people, but then what you really want to give is that they find their way, that you help them to create the causes for the happiness of liberation and the happiness of enlightenment. And so when we feel that sentient beings are very close to us, then we develop the affectionate love. And that is the kind of love that a mother feels when looking at her only child. You know, when the mother looks at her only child, for every mother, their child is the most beautiful child. And she feels great love for that child. Right. So she doesn't see any evil. Even when the child is very naughty, she thinks, you know, oh, he doesn't mean it like that, or she doesn't mean it like that. She's actually a good child. So this is how we try to see all sentient beings, in a very positive light, with a lot of affection, and seeing their inner goodness, seeing that even if they engage in negativities, they're coming from a place of inner goodness. They're coming from a place of, you know, inner goodness can even be, I just want to be happy, you know, that inner goodness is there. But whatever people are doing, whatever sentient beings are doing, they're doing that because they want to be happy. And if you can see that, you know, you do not become, I think you can, your anger doesn't become so uncontrolled. Let me say it like that. So once you can see all sentient beings as your mother, and if you recognize their kindness and you have the wish to repay their kindness, then the affectionate love comes often just naturally, independence on that. And so then independence on that, when we want all sentient beings to be happy, when we want that person in front of us to be happy, automatically comes that we want them to be free of suffering and the causes of suffering. So I already mentioned that the suffering can relate to wishing sentient beings to be free from suffering and the causes of suffering, and it can be wishing to protect sentient beings from suffering and the causes of suffering. And the great compassion that we're talking here about has both these aspects. So compassion is extremely important. And if you study the Chandrakirti's text on the middle way, in which he explains emptiness, he first has a homage to compassion and explains how it is important in the beginning, the middle, and the end. It is because it is important in the beginning, because in dependence upon that great compassion, we generate the mind of bodhicitta and we enter into the path that is going to lead us to enlightenment. And then while we are on the path, great compassion is important because it is that what keeps us engaging in the what we call the 6 perfections, the practices of the Bodhisattva. And then it is important at the end because once we are a Buddha, we effortlessly benefit sentient beings in every moment of our life. And it is the compassion that keeps that going. You know, so he makes a whole homage to compassion. And in order to develop great compassion, we have to, you know, when we see situations where there is injustice, we have to look at both sides, the victim and the perpetrator. And we need to try to see the big picture of karma, of, you know, you could even say, well, they must have met in past lives. And maybe in past lives, the roles were opposite. And what I see now in this life is just the manifestation of one moment in time of these two beings who have been with each other for a long period of time, for many lifetimes. And they're repeating the same thing, but always they change roles in different lifetimes. And you can also contemplate the suffering of the perpetrator, you know. Those who are harming, they are often already suffering in that moment a lot, either from their anger or from their greed. If you can see that, and then if you reflect on what is going to be the result of that, you know, that can help you to have compassion for both. And so they say, what is the measure of having generated great compassion in the mind? That is when you feel towards all sentient beings the same wish for them to be free of suffering as a mother would feel for her only child. And so then after great compassion, the next step is that we generate a mind of extraordinary intention. And so this is when you have the feeling that you alone have the responsibility of eliminating all the sufferings of all sentient beings and bringing them to the happiness they wish for. So even if all sentient beings in the world wouldn't care less about each other, you still feel like it's my responsibility to take care of that. And I will do it alone. So that's a tough one, I think, because we are so receptive to how other beings behave, you know, and somehow when nobody cares, we become careless too. So generating that mind, you need to really deeply connect with that potential in yourself of loving kindness, of compassion, and of wisdom. Sometimes His Holiness calls that universal responsibility. You know, this is what I'm here for. This is why I don't say we chose to be alive, but you could say this is why I'm living my life, because that is what I want to give to all sentient beings. I take that responsibility to take care of their happiness, to take care of their freedom of suffering. And so then in dependence on that, we say, how can I do that? At the moment, I do not have any capacity for that. I can only do that when I attain the state of a Buddha, when I develop my full potential. And therefore, I will generate the mind of enlightenment. I will generate what we call bodhicitta. I will generate the mind that wishes to attain enlightenment, so that then I have the capacity to be of benefit to all sentient beings. That's one method. That's the 7-point and effect instruction. And so this afternoon, we're going to talk about the second method, which is exchanging oneself with others. And then in the meditation, we will mix both methods. You know, we can bring them together as one method. And that is how we can practice bodhicitta in a way that it quickly bears fruit. You know, and that is where we really want to go, no? We like fast results. So let's do a no, not yet a meditation. First we have discussion, right? And there were some nice things in the chat, so I will come back to that. I'm not sure if we can make that today, but maybe this afternoon. I'm going to put everything in this afternoon. I'm going to speak really fast then. So my questions for the discussion is, no, that was not it. Something went wrong. Let me go back to the text. I thought that I copied something different. So I'm sorry for that. Here is the correct one. So what do you think? Do you think that generating bodhicitta, the mind of enlightenment, is possible? Do you aspire to develop such a mind, and why or why not? And the next one is, how would you start developing bodhicitta within the circumstances of your life? You know, where would you start? And maybe you feel an affinity with part of the practice and you say, you know, that is what works best for me. Okay. Can I give you 10 minutes? All right. Felipe, you can go ahead. Oh, he already does it. Good. You're all coming back. So I've been reading the chat while you were away. And Isabel wrote a very beautiful message. Can I read that for everyone? Isabel, are you okay with that? So she said, in so many ways, my parents, but mostly my mother, were there, no matter how hard the situation was in terms of economics. Time expanded with my siblings and me. Delicious food with not much, so there was not much on the table, and love in every brushing stroke of my hair. As I think about it, images pop up. I remember my mother saying that if I was happy, she was going to be happy, even if that meant to be across the world from her. Now she's 91 and fragile, and I have the pleasure of taking care of her. That's very beautiful. So that kindness of the mother, we try to remember, and in dependence on that, develop it for all sentient beings. Thank you for sharing that. I'm going to see if there are more questions, and in the meantime, there were some comments, so I'll just scroll up and go through the comments for a couple of minutes, all right? So Pretty asks about, I said that, you know, we have, that all sentient beings have been our mothers is according to the scripture, but it is also according to reasoning. So in Buddhism, text writers, they try to make their point by saying, you can find this in scripture and you can also establish this by reasoning. So finding it in scripture, you normally quote certain parts of scripture and say, look here, the Buddha said that, it is like that. And then in terms of reasoning, you are told what kind of reasoning we use in order to establish something. And so what I did in terms of talking about that we all have had countless rebirths and therefore countless mothers is establishing that by reasoning. You know, if you have had, so first of all, you establish the continuity of the mind, and then the balance upon that you have taken rebirth more than once. And in terms of that, if you think about the mind existing since beginningless time, you must have taken rebirth countless times, so therefore you must have had mothers countless time. This is a reasoning, right? So it's, and then they say they prove it like that. In the Western mind, we might say, what kind of proof is that? You know, but there is a logic behind it, and you familiarize with the logic and you check, you know, if it's true. And then you can establish it yourself by reasoning. So this method came indeed from Master Atisha. Somebody asked that. And then, let me see if there's a question. Talk was good but short, I know. Time goes so quick. Emilio has more questions to ponder. How can you recall the kindness of your parents and especially your mother? In many different ways, there have been so many instances. However, the use of parental debt as currency to gain emotional power by your parents stopped me from validating that fully. The use of that parental debt as currency to gain emotional. Because if I was to do that, it meant, given how many they manifested that must due gratitude, that I had to be more obliged or submissive emotionally to them. I think, you know, sometimes we discover we have some emotional issues that need to be sorted out. So sometimes parents, and maybe also we use guilt and shame in order to stop people from experiencing what they are experiencing and from expressing what they feel and how they think. And so then we can have the feeling that we submitted and that they were in control, the parents were in control over us, you know, and they had control with their guilt trips and with their shame trips. But I think now we have grown up and we're not living anymore with our parents. And even if you do, you can change that thinking and you can also change that dynamic. You know, when you're little, you depend upon your parents, especially, you know, when you are under, I mean, what can a child do? Where can you go? You know, so as a child, even if you would like to run away, you cannot. And so you have to stay. And then you get these guilt trips. And then you might have to decide, I need to shut up. I need to swallow this. I cannot express what I'm really feeling. And so that gives the feeling that others have control over us. But then at a later point in time, you can start looking at that, you know, and you can start undo that, open it up, see it as a package underneath of which there is this precious jewel, which is your authentic energy. It's hiding down there, you know, underneath the guilt and shame and underneath the anger that is down there and underneath the fear that is also there. Unpack it and see what you actually needed when you were a little child. Because often, you know, what children want, they want to be loved. They want to feel good enough. They want to feel that their parents like them in each and every aspect of their being. And, you know, often, but not always, because we have also seen the beautiful example of, now I forgot the name, of Isabel. But sometimes, you know, parents have an idea that you have to behave in a certain way. And if they impose that strongly on you as a child, part of you cannot exist. So you have to abandon part of you. Maybe you are ashamed about part of you. Maybe you have felt guilty about part of you. And so I think in order to really develop our potential, we have to undo that and see what was actually sitting there. You know, there was just a little boy or a little girl that needed to be loved, that needed to be hugged, that needed to be able to go crazy for a little while, that needed to, I don't know, you know, you check what you find there. And then what we can do with, and we're going to do a meditation on love, where we can visualize giving that to, we can imagine that child in front of us, and then we give that child whatever it needed. So if there is a lot of resentment towards the parents, it's hard to think about their kindness. You know, you first have to deal with that first, I think. Is that all right, Emilio? Can you do something with that? Because you had more comments, but they all came a little bit to the same issue, no? I'm just looking at you, see if you're going to give me a thumbs up or not. Is that all right? Okay. All right. Yeah, there are many layers, that's true, you know, and sometimes you start to unpack and you see aspects of yourself that you were not even aware that you had them, you know. I grew up thinking, having, and I'm not going to explain you too much about that, but certain ideas about myself. And then when I met the Dharma and my teachers, I suddenly started to see very different aspects of myself that I always believed that I didn't have them. And then by unpacking, I discovered even more layers that I had no idea I had these layers, you know. But then you keep unpacking, and you apply the methods that we talked about, you know. And sometimes, you know, I also go to a therapist in order to ask for help to deal with these layers. And so once you fully unpack that and you get to your authentic energy where you feel totally okay with who you are, there is nothing to hide, nothing to make more beautiful, nothing to pretend, you know, you already so much more relaxed. Then if people don't like you, well, they don't like you, that's fine, it's not your problem. When people like you, okay, people like you, that's nice, you know, but you're not dependent upon their approval, you're not dependent upon that they take you under their care, or you have your own life and emotionally you are independent. You know, then you become at peace with yourself. You are not your anger that is hiding there. You're not your rage that is hiding there. You're not your guilt that is sitting there, or your shame, you know. My therapist would say all these layers are healthy reactions to unhealthy situations. And so the better you understand that actually that is the only thing you could do when you were a little child, you know. But now these layers, they might actually prevent you from being who you are, from expressing who you are. They're not benefiting you anymore. They were beneficial when you were little, now not anymore. So now it's time to look at them, deal with them, let them go, you know, and become who you are meant to be. Yes, and sometimes we feel in moments that we can be grateful, and in other moments that we're sitting with the guilt and all the rest. I'm sure you'll work it out. You know, that is our job. It is very hard to come to this life without any, you know, we need to have negative karma to get here. We need to have attachment to get here. So we're going to have suffering. And so I think, you know, that healing is part of nature. Nature is always working towards healing, towards becoming whole, towards becoming what you are meant to be. And so at a certain point, it just starts to surface and you need to work with it. And I think the biggest problem is that we believe we are that, all these things that we are feeling because we have been told that we are that, but we are not that. You're not that, not any of that. You're totally something different. And so if you allow yourself space for that and to become that, you might be surprised after some time about yourself and who you are. And pleasantly surprised, you know. It's never that you discover, oh my gosh, there is such an ugly self and that self is going to be there all the time, you know. It's not possible. I've never, ever, 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 ever seen that. We human beings, we sentient beings, we have inner beauty, each and every one of us. The ugliness is covering up the inner beauty. The ugliness is our attempt to protect that inner beauty, you know. And so once you start taking that away, there is only going to be beauty. Promise. If it's not true, you can come back to me. I give you your money back. Okay, we're going to do a meditation on love. It's a feel-good meditation. And I might give you the feeling of what you can do with these inner children, you know, that we have, that we're not so happy at a certain point in time, but how we can help them. All right? So make yourself comfortable. Relax your body and mind. And let all your thoughts and worries subside. You can focus on your body or you can focus on your breath, whatever you're most comfortable with. And then see yourself as you are right now, with all your faults and shortcomings. And also with the recognition that you have the potential to be free from all your problems. How do you feel with yourself? Do you feel safe, loved, appreciated? How do you talk to yourself? See your needs, your hurt, your love, your tolerance, and compassion. And generate from the depth of your heart a wish for yourself to experience all the happiness and goodness you can imagine. Send from your heart white light, which fills your whole body, giving you everything you need. If you have the need to feel loved, send love to yourself. If you feel the need to be heard, listen to yourself. If you feel the need to be connected, connect to each and every part of yourself. Until all your needs are fulfilled. And you experience happiness, bliss, and a smile appears on your face. Then see yourself when you were younger, somewhere in your childhood, where you went through some painful experiences that you haven't dealt with yet. See your pain and your needs. And generate from the depth of your heart a wish for that child to experience all the happiness and goodness you can imagine. And from your heart you send white light, which fills the child's whole body, giving it everything it needs. Until all the needs are fulfilled. And the child experiences happiness, bliss, and a smile appears on its face. And maybe there are more little children who would like to reconnect with you, who would like to feel your love, who would like that you hear them, that you see them, that you love them. And so tell these children that you will come back to them. And if you say that to them, make sure that you do. Whether that is today or somewhere this week. And then pay attention to all those living beings around you. Your mother is on your left, your father on your right, and all the relatives and friends are behind you. Visualize in front of you those you dislike or who have hurt you. And all other sentient beings are around you in human form, right to the horizon. They're all sitting quietly like you. And a sense of harmony and peace pervades everyone. The love that you have just generated for yourself and which has filled your whole body with light and love overflows and flows out to others. Start with your friends and close friends. Start with your family and your close friends sitting near you. A warm, luminous energy radiates from your body, touching them, filling their whole bodies and mind. Think sincerely when you look at each of them. May you be happy, may you be well. May all your thoughts be positive and all experiences good. And then you visualize that you give them everything they need until they are completely fulfilled. Their minds become completely peaceful, clear, and full of pure happiness. And a blissful smile appears on their face. So you connect with each of them and you say, may you be happy, may you be well, may all your thoughts be positive and all experiences good. And the love radiates out of all your pores towards them, filling their whole body and mind. Then turn your attention to the people in front of you, those you have difficulty with, and contemplate that they are also in need of happiness and that you can give that to them by sending them love. Imagine your positive, loving energy flowing out from your heart to those people, filling their whole bodies and mind. And when you look at each of them, think sincerely, may you be happy, may you be well. May all your thoughts be positive and all experiences good. And you give them everything they need until they are completely fulfilled. Their minds become peaceful, clear, and full of pure happiness. And a blissful smile appears on their face. May you be happy, may you be well. May all your thoughts be positive and all your experiences be good. And then continue to send your positive, loving energy out to all the other people. Imagine that your love flows into every direction, reaching all beings. And you can think of those who are lonely and those who are busy. Those who are frightened and those who are frightening. Those who are bullying and those who are bullied. Those who are sick and those who are healthy. And think sincerely, may you be happy, may you be well. May all your thoughts be positive and all your experiences be good. And you give them everything they need until they are completely fulfilled. Their minds become completely peaceful, clear, and full of happiness. And a blissful smile appears on their face. Keep concentrating on this feeling of love. And then contemplate your own potential to love everyone and rejoice in that capacity. And generate a strong wish to develop that potential more and more. And then we then dedicate all the positive energy that we have gathered by participating in this session, by thinking about a material, by reflecting on a material, by discussing it, and then by meditating on it. So much merit. And then we dedicate that to the temporary and the ultimate happiness of all sentient beings, including ourselves. Thank you very much for your contributions. This afternoon we have the last session of the 6-day course. So I'll talk about exchanging self and others, and I'll answer 2 questions that are still there, which have a little bit to do with how we go from here. And then I'll also will talk about my idea about tomorrow, and you can give your input if you have other ideas or if you like the idea that I have. All right, I'll see you at 5 o'clock Indian time. Thank you very much.